Welcome into the Invest Well Show. I'm your host, Michael Wall. We are joined today with a wonderful guest, actually ex-neighbor. He wanted to go and be on the water, which I understand, Joe. You had to leave the neighborhood. It's all good, though. But Joe Steranka, he's a great guy, wonderful career. We're going to talk on the show today. He was a CEO of the PGA of America for 24 years. He's been involved in PR, brand development in a lot of different ways for a bunch of different athletes that you would know the names of. But we're going to talk today about the idea of investing in your brand, why it's so important. All today on the Invest Well Show. All right, so Joe, here we are. First off, thanks for taking a minute out of your busy schedule. I know you're trying to still find some things to do again.
Michael, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
I missed you in the neighborhood.
Yeah, we miss you guys. We miss you and your wife around, and you've had quite a career. And I want to just kind of start there before we jump into this, because you started out years ago, ProServe, and you were helping guys like Patrick Ewing and Michael Jordan and a bunch of other names that everybody knows kind of develop their brands. And then you moved into PGA of America, and then you're been doing kind of PR type works ever since then. Maybe help the listeners just for a minute know a little bit of your career journey and why you jumped the way you did.
You know, Michael, I grew up playing sports back in that era where you played football, basketball, and baseball the 3 seasons, and then every now and then you throw in individual sports, some track and field, and some golf for me. But I found sports brought me places that I otherwise couldn't have gone to. I got recruited to play collegiate baseball at West Virginia University,
and where is home now?
Here,
I mean, originally, where did you grow up?
I was a Navy brat, born in the Philippine Islands on a U.S. naval base.
Really?
And so Florida was actually my 14th move.
Okay, gosh.
But what I found in sports was you had a friend everywhere. Now that meant I wasn't baseball was my great sport, but I was an adequate football player, adequate basketball player, and you go out for the sports team and you make a new group of friends. I was one of those rare people that had a real passion for words and telling stories. And actually, for my senior year of high school, I wrote the columns for the local daily in Fredonia, New York, about our baseball team and our games. And so if I had a particularly good game, I'd give it to my friends on the bus on the way back to read. I said, I just don't want to make it seem like I'm
talking about myself.
And they said, well, you had pretty darn good games, so don't worry about it.
Yep.
But that carried through life. So the people I met because of sports and went to work for the Washington Bullets at age 20.
Wow.
I had a friend who was working there, and he said, they'll hire you to sell season tickets during the playoffs, but you can't make any money, but you get to watch the games for free. And I learned an interesting thing then, that selling was not some magical, mysterious, skill. It was 2 things. It was knowing your product and being enthusiastic about it. And I was a jock. I grew up, really craving the insights on how to play better and the stories behind the athletes. So I'd hang out in the locker room. Back then it was Wes Unseld and Elvin Hayes. And I'd put on a suit and stand behind a 8-foot draped table and tell stories. And I sold more season tickets and made more money in 6 weeks of the playoffs than I had my entire life. Got offered a job with the Washington Bullets, now the Washington Wizards at the time. Met the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He hired me at age 24 to be the public relations director for an NBA team. So I was the youngest PR guy in the league. And
wow.
I was kind of making it up, but I had friends who were a lot more experienced, and I wasn't bashful about calling them and asking for advice. And then to ProServe, where we had Michael Jordan and Jimmy Connors, Arthur Ashe, and FloJo, and 25 years with the PGA of America, and the last 10 consulting,
Wow.
helping the Buffalo Group and a bunch of folks with big sports businesses operate a little bit better, and as you said at the start of the show, build their brands.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thread that I hear you saying as you're talking about things, or at least what I hear, is you stayed open. You were open to opportunity. You had a great attitude, and you always were willing to walk through those doors, right?
Yeah.
What caused you to know? So you go from Washington to ProServe, then to the PGA Tour. Was it just, hey, here's an offer that you got that you couldn't refuse, or what caused you to know it's time to take that next step?
I was always curious about what's next and what's a cool opportunity, and sports gave me the self-confidence to go do things that I thought I might have the skills to do. I wasn't sure if I could pull it off, and I said, listen, hire a 24-year-old to be the public relations director for an NBA team. Hire a 29-year-old to run, a big division for the PGA of America.
Yeah.
So every time I kind of stepped up, and because of that confidence, went in and learned the business by doing a lot of listening. There's that old adage, you have two ears and one mouth, and you ought to use them in that proportion, which doesn't always happen. But so learned a ton from so many people. And I found also in the sports industry, it's amazing how people who are, you might even call them competitors, they share information because we all know the importance of sports. Getting kids involved in sports at a young age and being physically active, it improves their academic performance and improves their health and wellness. And as a trailing effect, far beyond, just one young boy or girl. So I think all of us in sports want to help each other succeed and help the bigger cause of entertaining people and keeping people active in America, which we all need to stay a little more active.
Well, and we're encouraging and adding a ton of value to our culture along the way. That's really planting. I like Dennis Waitley. I say this all the time, but planting shade trees under which we'll never sit, and that's the future generation in a lot of ways. Yeah. So we got a great trophy here, and Joe brought this in for me to put on my wall of fame. No, I'm kidding. Tell us a little bit about the trophy. So we got a Ryder Cup. Well, it's signed, I guess, by a bunch of people. Tell us about what's going on.
It's the autographs of the U.S. team in 2012.
So I'm going to hold this up for a minute.
My final Ryder Cup with the PGA of America, and Davis Love was our captain. The name of that Ryder Cup is the Miracle at Medina. If you're a European fan, because they were down 4 points going into Sunday. We had President Bush 41 and Barbara and President Bush 43 in the team room, and we're laughing and telling stories of kind of maybe looking too far ahead about what was going to happen the next day. And son of a gun, sports happened.
Yeah.
I call sports the original reality TV programming.
Yeah,
because
I love that, by the way.
Nobody would have guessed that Europe could come back on the road and win the Ryder Cup. But
it was incredible.
Darn if they didn't.
Yeah.
So this Ryder Cup, to me, represents the purity of sport, that people are playing not for prize money, not for their individual, record, but for the team. And it's the only time that you see, these hardened, well compensated athletes grind it out over a 4-foot putt, helping their teammate read a putt, just to go one up on the other teams. So I saw that firsthand when I was at ProServe and heard about the Ryder Cup, and when I was interviewed by my predecessor, Jim Autry, during the 1988 PGA Merchandise Show. I said, the Ryder Cup is the Olympics of golf. But
Absolutely.
Nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
It had been on for a couple of hours in Wide World of Sports that Jack Nicklaus's events business had brokered a deal to get it on for a little bit, but never had live coverage. So that was the vision of tell the story about Sam Ryder, British seed merchant, who's golf professional. Abe Mitchell is on the top of the Ryder Cup. And I have to tell you, we did a media tour my first year and took Raymond Floyd, who was the Ryder Cup captain, around New York City and trying to build this up and get coverage of the Ryder Cup. And so we went into a very prominent newspaper in this country that's still around, and they'll remain
anonymous.
Nameless. But after the lunch with Raymond Floyd, the editor said, "This is great. I agree. It's got legs. We will definitely cover it." He said, "But we have an issue." And I said, "What's the issue?" He says, "Well, we can't call it the Ryder Cup."
Wow.
Okay. Why not? I said, "Well, there's this new Associated Press policy about using sponsor names, and so it's sponsored by Ryder Trucks, which back then sponsored the Doral Ryder Open, and so we got to call it something else." And I said to myself, "You have a lot more work to do than you know." So think about the Ryder Cup was not.
Not even as big as Ryder Trucks.
Right.
Yeah, which is huge.
Yeah, you can never take your brand for granted.
Yeah.
We all live with our respective brands, the companies that the Buffalo Group and I work with. They own their brands. They live and breathe it. But,
which is huge.
But not everybody.
Not everybody does. And so let's talk about that, Joe. I want to talk about investing in your brand. And I want to take a minute. You've had, obviously, this is kind of a hot topic right now with Live and all of this stuff.
Sure.
And, you were with PGA of America for 24 years. Obviously, you got the tour, you got PGA of America, but very involved, very intertwined. And we see my perspective. Now, we have, in the kind of the offshoot other hat I wear, private wealth firm, we have a pro athlete division. And so we've worked with and connected with and interacted with some golfers over the years. And I think the conversation that I've had in a lot of ways is, at least for me as a consumer, it feels like Live just kind of blew up out of nowhere. But I think the conversation is there was rumblings for a while of challenges and discontentment or whatever it may be in different capacities. And all of a sudden, here's Live. And to me, I look at it as almost, and I'd love your thoughts on this, is the idea of where companies kind of get to the place where they can kind of be fat and happy, and they feel like nobody can kick them off the top of the hill. They're kind of resting on their laurels in a lot of ways, instead of saying, wait a minute, we got to continue to reinvent. We got to continue to be ahead. And I'm not saying that they weren't doing that, but I'm just saying from a consumer perspective, it kind of feels that way. What is your thoughts on this whole process?
Well, that's one point of view.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just I'm
No,
interested in your thoughts on that.
If you look back at the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia's investment in Formula One and some of the great concert series that drew people and artists from around the world, their investment in European football that was, very controversial. This term sports washing, of using sports and events that reach across cultures and appeal to the passion that, as I said, we all have for sport, to shift the conversation away from human rights or the OPEC decision or other things.
Misdirection.
It is something that it's a tried and true formula that works. And from that standpoint, the investment in Live Golf has worked, because we're not talking about all those things. We're talking about does Live deserve a seat at the table with the Jay Monahans and the Adam Silvers and the Roger Goodells and Rob Manfreds. So that's it's worked well for them. From a sports,
I didn't realize, by the way, they were involved in all of those other things you just mentioned too.
Yes,
that's interesting. So this isn't the first time.
No. But from a sports standpoint,
Right.
um, that's the challenge. Is if the end goal is not the monetary performance of a league, which yeah, of course they have to say it is, but it's already successful and
Yeah.
it's hasn't made any money. So will it continue? I don't know. In the end, the sports fan wins, though.
Yeah.
A lot of the folks that have asked my opinion, and believe me, it's a lot more fun to be a pundit than actually be, those guys and ladies that are dealing with this right now. It's a real
It's a lot.
business challenge.
Yeah.
But the sports fan wins if folks say, I really like that team concept.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to buy the team merchandise. I'm going to dress up my kids at Halloween in those outfits. I'm going to do a TikTok video that's going to go viral about my team. I'm going to post content in other social media, and I'm going to watch the competition. I'm going to buy tickets, and my company's going to buy a pro-am.
It's fan-centric.
If they do that and that's sustainable, then sponsors will join it, and media companies will follow the sponsor money and put it on the air. Whether 54-hole golf with no cut and
Right.
a lot of guaranteed contracts and the same 48 players.
Right.
It,
I get the sense that it's a fad.
whether
That's my
that'll work-
personal opinion too. I don't know that it's got the bandwidth as it is now to continue.
Yeah,
Like the PGA Tour has.
The best analogy that I heard was Tom Friedman. He was on CNBC not long after Liv started, and he said, "Well, kind of look at Liv and the PGA Tour as gymnastics." And he goes,
What?
Joe Kernan said, "What?" And he says, "Listen, I love gymnastics. I take my grandkids to the circus. We watch the people in the flying trapeze, and they're great gymnasts.
Yeah.
Performing aerobatic stunts, and it's a lot of fun. And then every now and then I get invited by NBC to go to the Olympic Games, and I watch the medal competition for gymnastics. Both very entertaining, but I don't confuse one with the other."
Right.
And I think there's when you bring celebrity athletes
Yeah.
that are big in social media
Yeah.
to a town that doesn't have PGA Tour golf, people are going to show up.
Yeah. It's just the way. Yeah.
I understand that, but is it compelling, authentic
Right.
sports drama? Is it reality TV?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
At the same time, you have to take it very seriously.
I think it's good perspective and looking at it that way, and it's definitely been a disruptor. But I like what you're saying with all of those things. I don't know that it's got the staying power. I don't know. We'll see as this plays out, right, in real time.
Right.
So let's talk about let's kind of get to maybe a couple things here. I want to kind of get to the idea of building and investing in your brand. And let's say if you had to pick, Joe, one or two, or I'll give you as much as three if you want, ideas that you would share with the listeners out there saying, you know what, if you really want to think about your brand and you really want to build your brand from all of the different venues and from the personal athletes to the companies that you've been involved with, what would be maybe one or two or three things that you would say is so important in actually building a sustainable brand?
Yeah. The first is to be truthful with yourself. We work hard. We take time away from our families. We do a lot of things to build our companies and our businesses and our brands. And it's tough to admit when the brand isn't everything that, it should be.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate to get invited to these Microsoft CEOs summits, 100 CEOs from around the world out at the Redmond campus, and go to Bill Gates's house and hear, people who are a lot smarter than me talk about branding. And one woman who heads a big consumer products brand said the way she approaches it is she fires herself every year as
Wow.
CEO because she wants to start over and rebuild her company and herself to be a better company and a better CEO. So being realistic about where your brand sits, its features, its benefits, its shortcomings, the old SWOT analysis. So that's number one. Number two is to realize that the best information on product development comes from your own customers. And they're also, especially in today's social media world, your greatest evangelists. So to invest in folks who build relevant and real communication networks with your customers. So how do you encourage and attract, invite your customers to do what we call user-generated content posts that are about your brand. And, even the most enthusiastic customer is not going to score you 100 out of 100.
Yeah.
Every now and then they're going to tweak you a little bit, but that makes the other posts about your brand all the more believable.
They're real.
They are. So if you listen, your customers will tell you, and there are certain techniques that you use, and you can engage influencers to guide the discussion and certainly guide it in a way that is more beneficial to your brand, but to really listen to your customers. And it's that product, reinvention cycle, that, hey,
thinking outside the box.
You identify a void, and you build a product that you think is going to fill that void, and then you test it, and then you adapt it based on the test results, and then you put it into full-scale production, and then you roll it out, and you learn some more when it goes to scale. That's different than when you were testing it in a small market. And then for the case of some companies that we work with, you go international, and the global part of crossing cultures and languages with your brand is another thing entirely. So the fun part is, I think, is that it never ends.
Yeah.
You're
constant learning.
It's as you said, that continuous improvement commitment that the real leaders make.
Well, and I love what you said there, Joe, about the idea of you started. When you talked about development and coming out all the way even to cross culture, you started with the idea of identifying a void, identifying a need. And I feel like a lot of brands today, a lot of businesses today, are in a place where they're more product driven first than what is the need. And I think if you lead with need, as Zig Ziglar used to say, right? Lead with need.
Right.
I love, he also used to say, which this, I'm sure, when you help enough other people get what they want, the day will come when you get what you want.
Right.
And it's the idea of leading with need. And I think that's so crucial, because you got so many people today, especially with our, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever culture, people can just spew out ideas and things. And a lot of it's flash pan. It's not really sustainable quality that's going to add value to people long term. And I think that's so important. Would you have a number 3? So first one is be truthful to yourself. Second one is the best information comes from your customers, and then finding need, identifying need, and improving on it. Third one would be?
Don't assume that if you build it, they will come.
Not like Field of Dreams.
I've seen so many people say, I don't know why anybody, nobody buys the product, or we're not meeting our numbers. And you look at how they're marketing their product, and it's very easy to say, so all right, you did a lot of great research, you proved that you can design and produce something of value. Now you got to tell the world about it. And sports is one of those great ways
Mm-hmm.
to invest, to market to uh, various audiences of people that are more active, a little more upscale.
Mm-hmm.
And the passion that people have for their sport means that if you connect with them via that sport, then they'll listen,
Yeah.
more intently than they would if they're just watching the evening news and they see your brand flash across.
They're a passive receiver during the evening news versus with sports, they're active.
Right.
They want to get involved. They're active. They're proactive, and I love that.
Yeah.
Well, those are 3 great ideas, tips, strategies. Joe, what's next? What's on your agenda next? I mean, you're consulting. You're doing your thing. Your wife told you can never retire, so we know that. She said that's off the docket.
I have a real passion for leveraging sports to make our country healthier. That we're facing a obesity epidemic. COVID accelerated that. The use of technology to communicate and entertain ourselves, that went way up during COVID.
Yeah.
Sports participation went way down.
Yeah.
Initially, and for the team sports, especially the kids' team sports, they couldn't play for a season or a season and a half. Golf, as an individual sport, after a short period of time, figured out how to do that safely, and golf actually had a huge boom as a result of it. But we went to Congress to lobby for the Sports Fitness Industry Association for the FIT Act, the PHIT Act, and for $78 million in funding for phys ed in schools. So $4.5 trillion budget.
Yeah.
$78 million.
Wow.
For phys ed, nothing.
That is nothing.
So Gary Player and I, we go up there and we're meeting.
Wait, let's say that again. $4.5 trillion, $78 million.
Right. And
so it's like it's not even a concern.
It isn't.
Wow.
So federally, they just don't see that.
The value.
Didn't see that as a priority for the national government. Well, when we're looking at the shortfalls in Medicare, Medicaid coverage, and knowing that for every dollar you spend encouraging physical activity, there's a 3-to-1 return on investment for improving healthcare costs.
Yeah.
So why would you
not do that?
Put $1 billion into getting kids and families more active and save $3 billion on the back end because you are lowering levels of hypertension, obesity, diabetes, vascular problems, all the things that a little moderate activity. We did, we're empowered. So Gary Player and I go in there, and Gary's doing push-ups and telling the Nelson
Crazy
Mandela story.
Yeah.
And he's was 75 at the time.
Yeah.
And John Boehner and Hal Rogers headed appropriations, and Eric Cantor were there. They after the stories, they said, "All right, Steranka, why are you here?" And I told them, I said, "Listen, $78 million out of $4.5 trillion is just
not enough.
I can't believe that we have to defend that, but it's a tough budget time, and we want to tell you about that 3-to-1 return on investment, and we want to tell you about these brain scans we do of kids after 20 minutes of just moderate activity.
Wow,
how their brains light up,
wow.
And that means they retain information.
Yeah.
Better, which means they're going to have a better GPA, which means they're going to have a higher graduation rate, and for girls, a lower incidence of teenage pregnancy.
Yeah.
So there is
a lot of
so
benefits.
much value from this, and so we learned that from the great work the First Tee did. Their First Tee Golf in Schools program reaches millions of kids, and the First Tee, when you improve one kid's life, you improve their siblings, you improve their parents, you improve the lives of aunts.
It's kind
and
of a generational thing.
It really can be.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of cause-related marketing related to health and wellness and sports, and just as you said, I'd like to leave this a little better than I found it. And our country needs that, I think, right now.
I love that. Well, Joe, I've appreciated having a conversation with you and you coming and taking the time and being gracious with your story and all of your history. And I love that encouragement and the 3 tips that you left those listeners out there about what to do to really build your brand. Listen, as you're listening to this show, I know that there was kind of a little bit there, a lot there. Go back and kind of chew on some of this. Press pause, make notes. Write down, think about, and look at your own brand. I want to challenge you to look at whatever company that you're in. Many of you know that, over the years we've been in the financial firm. We have 2 companies that actually sponsor this show. But at the end of the day, everything that we do, whether it's our digital brand or this brand or everything, we want to be sitting down and reevaluating. I'm going to challenge you to do that because that will not only inspire more creativity, right, but it'll also add more value to people that exist out there today. That's one of the ways that we change culture, by adding more value to others around us. Joe, thanks so much for taking some time.
Michael, great to see you again.
I enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Great to see you. And if you want a picture with the trophy, I know a guy, but you can't get one. All right, see you, everybody. Happy day. And by the way, as always, my desire and goal is for you to live on purpose so you can live with purpose. Share this show with someone that needs to hear it, somebody that's inspired or wants to start a business or is in business or just would encouraged by this story. Hey, appreciate y'all. See you soon. Keep in mind, the information shared on this show is not to be considered investment advisory advice. For specific recommendations based on your situation, make sure you reach out to a professional, whether it be financial, accounting, tax, attorney, or whatever you may need to help you find the information necessary to make good decisions.